Hello and welcome to the Route 1 Show, the podcast bringing you all the latest football action from West Yorkshire and beyond. I'm Stephen Brown, and with me in the studio, as ever, is Tim Feather. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
And we've also got, returning for his second show, it's Chris Bell. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So you've managed to get rid of Spivey and you're in, aren't you, now?
Yeah, a capable substitute, I think. Super sub.
We'll see. No, it's fine. Right, well, we're having a look at Park Avenue now, and I'm delighted to say joining us on the line is their hat-trick hero from Monday night when they beat Halifax Town 4-0. It's James Knowles. Hi, James.
Good evening, how are you?
Thanks for joining us. So, a hat-trick, how did that feel?
Very, very strange. Not used to scoring three, that's for sure.
Is that the first time you scored a hat-trick?
I've been trying to work out this week. I've scored a couple of lower levels and when I was a kid, but definitely the first at this level, yeah.
So just about 25 behind Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, just a few to catch him up.
It was an absolutely fantastic game. I was there doing co-commentary for it on Monday night. It was a fantastic match, wasn't it? It a bit close at the start, but as soon as Park Avenue got the first goal, it really took off for them. Yeah,
I mean, the manager wanted to try out a bit of a new system, just to catch them on the back foot kind of thing. And like you say, once we dealt with their early bit of pressure, our forward line pretty much ran the show from there on.
Absolutely. What was it like coming in and playing Harrogate again? You've played them so many times recently. What was the mentality before?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the majority of the lads, we thought we should have probably finished it at their place on Saturday. So to bring them back to our place, we were all pretty confident that we could go on and move on to the next round. Like you say, we've played them 3 times over the last few weeks, and we've still got them to play twice in league yet. So
yeah, how significant as well that you kept a clean sheet?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming, and they've been few and far between. I've spoken to a few people this week, and they've been saying exactly the same things. It seems to be if we give the opposition a chance, they seem to be taking them. I mean, obviously nothing against Lammy. He's a great goalkeeper, but as a defence, we don't give him, in games, we don't give him a right lot to do. But just at the moment, every time it seems we give teams a chance, they seem to be scoring. So it was nice to finally get a shot out, and hopefully it can be start of a few more. And
this experimentation with a new formation tweak slightly, is that something that you think he'll stick with after getting the clean sheet?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, we tried it against them in the County Cup with different personnel. Obviously, we've got a few injuries at the moment. Like Adam Clayton's injured, and so is Martin Drury. So that kind of made him have to reshuffle. Jamie Price is out as well, and so Scott Maxfield. So we were literally down to the bare bones. So.
Absolutely. And
obviously, with the personnel he had, he just had to kind of play what he could, really.
It was good having Davidson back, though, wasn't he? He played particularly well first half, and it was like he hadn't been out of the team at all. Yeah, he's a big asset for us. He can create something out of nothing, and he's been one of our main players this year, especially in the big games. He's the one that's caught the eye for a lot of people, really. So it was good to have him back. I mean, a lot of lads thought it was a bit soft being out. He had a dead leg. I don't think I've ever missed a game in my life with a dead leg, but he seemed to miss 2. So he was. I think he was under a bit of pressure to play on there. And obviously, I mean, last mention about the Harrogate game, but the hat-trick. Which was your favourite goal? Obviously, the third was fantastic, wasn't it?
The third was good, yeah. I mean, when I came away, a lot of people saying, "Oh, was it 3 headers?" And I'm like, "No, I got 2." I thought, I mean, the first one, I'd be interested to see him back actually, because the first one,
there's great reflexes for the first one.
It kind of like,
didn't you?
Yeah, he just popped up in between the lad who was marking me, and I think we were both off balance, and I've just slid in and kind of caught it nicely outside of my foot, and like you say, that just gives the benchmarks and move on. But the third was just a nice little flick from a good cross from Bosch, who I thought was absolutely superb on Monday night. Yeah,
and coming up next, it's Boston United. How do you feel about that one, James?
Yeah, we seem to do quite well against Boston. We've beaten them quite a few times down at their place. Beat them earlier on in the season, and I think it was quite close by then. I think it was 3-2. But the first half away, was one of the best games of football we've played this season. Some of the passing and movement as a full team was great to watch. Obviously, sometimes you stand at the back and admire the lads in front of you, but. I mean they've been on a good run, I think, since we beat them. So it'll be a tough game, but they won't fancy coming to us. They know what we're about. They know how we like to play football, and hopefully, if the weather stays off, we'll be able to get the game on and hopefully get the 3 points, which we need to keep us promotion race open. Really.
Hi James, it's Chris.
Hey, pal, you right?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. How do you assess really the season so far for Park Avenue? You're 15 games in. 8th in the league, just 5 or 6 points outside those playoff places. How do you assess the season overall so far in the league? In the league standings.
The league we started off pretty slow. We lost the first couple, and then we went on the unbeaten run. Which, although we were unbeaten, as players and I think as management as well, we were a bit gutted with some of the results. We drew quite a few, which. If you look at the game as a whole, we should have probably won and got the 3 points and be sitting a lot higher than we are. I think there's a real belief in the squad that we can really push on this year, and there's nobody there we haven't got a Chester like last year that ran away with it. So everybody's beating everyone. So if we can put a run of wins together, there's no problem with us being up there and fighting for playoffs or even pushing on to try and win it, really.
Do you think so far it's just been, missed chances in games that have ended as a draw, which could have just, made it into, taking away 3 points instead of just the one, and, as you say, up there in that playoff hunt, really?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think the forward line at our place, they'd be the first ones to admit that we've missed a lot of chances, whether it be us going up for corners, whether it be the strikers one-on-ones, or a lot of balls going across the box, where we're coming in at half time and it's 0-0 when it should be 1, maybe 2-0 to us. It puts everyone at ease and it just settles the game down. Whereas, to be fair, they probably put the defence under a bit of pressure. We then go out, we then concede one, and then we're fighting to get a goal back. And we've managed to come from a goal down and a couple of goals down in a few games this year. So we have got the ability to go and score, but we could do with getting a couple of early goals just to settle us nerves, really, and push on, really.
And of course, in the FA Trophy, it's, do you feel it might be unsettled, unfinished business, really? Because, Kidderminster all over again. Yeah,
I mean, a few of the lads were texting around on the Monday before the Harrogate game saying it was unbelievable. Obviously, some of the draws we've had in the cup competitions over the last couple of years haven't been very favourable. The Kidderminster game, we over the 2 legs, not even 2 legs, over the 2 games, we should have probably won both. Again, missed chances. We've hit the post a couple of times at their place, which, if we put one of them away, I think it's game over. They weren't really creating anything until we tired in extra time. But yeah, I think we've got a little bit of unfinished business, and I think when you look at it from our point of view, they've kind of gone on in the FA Cup and they've had a favourable draw against Sutton, beat them pretty comfortably, and then they've got another non-league team in the second round. So if they beat them, they're in with the big boys, and knowing our luck, they'll probably draw Man U or Arsenal or Man City. It's just typical. But yeah, I mean, we've got them in this, and I think the lads are looking forward to it. They won't fancy coming to our place. Last time they came, they were whinging about the grass being long and it being bobbly, and I think they thought that when we went back to theirs, they'd just turn up and roll us over. But we showed them that we can play football, and we were probably a better team on the night. So they definitely won't fancy it, and I think we're up for it. So hopefully we can do a job and move on to the next round.
I mean, I spoke to the chairman, John Dean, straight after the FA Cup replay, and he said just how far it shows that the club has come. That the team's been able to put in such great performances against that higher opposition, really. Yeah,
definitely. I spoke to a couple of the Halifax lads, and they said that Kidderminster were by far the best team they've played this year. Obviously, when the draw first came out, and when we played them, I don't think any of the lads felt out of place, and I don't think that if you took our team and club up to the next level, we'd definitely hold our own. I mean, you look at how well Halifax are doing this year. and they've kind of changed their philosophy. They've just gone kind of for big lads and are playing pretty much the long ball, whereas our manager John Deese, he encourages to play football, and if you do make a mistake, that's what happens. That's why we're playing at this level. But he wants us to play the right way. He wants us to try and get it down and play football, and I think that's what we're doing. And the only disappointment is the lack of crowds we're getting at the moment. I think if we could spark a bit of interest within the Bradford public, then they could come down and see what we're about and see that we do play decent football for the level we're playing at.
What is it like playing under a manager like John Deese?
Yeah, he's good. I mean, I've played under him for years now. I was at Farley with him, and when he came to Bradford, he brought me with him. So I've played with him a long time. I mean, to be fair, it's very good because he's quite relaxed. Again, he encourages us to play the right way. So it's all kind of football based. He wants us to get the ball down, play. So it's a lot of possession in training and things like that. But I've been at clubs where you can be playing. I think we've played something like 6 games in 17 days. And some managers would have you in Tuesday, they'd have you in Thursday training, whereas it's typical of John Speak. He just says, right, we've had a lot of football, you've done well, recuperate, get yourself to the gym, and work on your recovery rather than coming in training. So it is good at that side, and the club look after a lot of the boys. We've got players coming from all over the place. We've got lads coming from Rotherham, Hull, Manchester. So it's a testament to John that he's been able to put this squad of players together, really.
He really believes in that attractive style of football, doesn't he, as well? I mean, I absolutely concur with you. I mean, the standard was fantastic on Monday. He really sticks with that philosophy, doesn't he, even when things are going against them, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, I suppose it's a great philosophy to try and play football and stuff, but obviously when you do make a mistake, sometimes it gets highlighted. Again, with this level, if you do make a mistake, the opposition tends to take the advantage and put you 1-0 behind or get a goal. So, but yeah, John, he comes in and encourages, as long as you're trying the right things, he does encourage it. But I think one of the big things is just the pitch we play on. I mean, if all lads say that we sometimes prefer playing away from home because we play at some really nice grounds with really nice pitches, and I think when we do go to away games, we do sometimes we get the better football because we're playing on better surfaces, and that allows us to show us ability, really. Whereas sometimes at the Horsefall, it's a bit of a mud bath, and you're slipping and sliding, and it's a bit bobbly. So it's
a bit bobbly on Monday, wasn't it? But it held up, didn't it, in the end? Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, the pitch is the best it's been for a while, but it's just obviously it's so open to the elements, really. A bit of water and a bit of obviously it's so windy and everything, which it kind of brings us down to other teams' levels sometimes. It encourages us to play the ball in the air when we're more comfortable with it on the floor. So,
well, how do you find personally when the schedule gets so busy with so many games in short succession? You've got your work away from football as well. How do you manage to fit it all in?
I'm not too bad because I work for myself. I've got my own football tours company, so I can work in and around it. But normally you expect the build-up of games to be towards the end of the season, not so much at the start. I mean, we've been playing twice a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks now, so it's. But I know, like some of the lads do struggle, and. When, as you say, some of them are starting work at 6 o'clock, finishing at 5, and then coming straight to the game with probably a quick bite to eat at home. Say hello to the missus, and then they're at football till 10 o'clock, 10:30, and then they're home to bed and they start all over again. But
I won't be back from Kidderminster till 5 in the morning.
Well, that was it. Some of the lads didn't get back till about 4:30, and then they were up at 6 to go to work. So it's a big commitment, but the lads do get paid, and with it being part time and stuff. You've got to make these sacrifices and work at it, really.
Absolutely. Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Not a problem.
Lovely. Best of luck against Boston.
Cheers,
mate. Thanks a lot. Thank you, mate. Bye-bye. OK, so we just heard from James Knowles, and this week I'm Bradford Park Avenue's correspondent.
Yes, I know. How
I've got a correspondent
gig.
Yes, get in. So I was doing co-commentary, and I thought you were going to be there because you weren't there. What's going on?
I was in Manchester at a gig.
Which gig was it?
A band called Blue October. Sorry, nobody else has heard of them either.
I saw your Facebook praising them, yes.
Yeah,
did you get pictures with the band as well?
I did indeed, yes. Top band, really good band from Texas.
Oh, wow.
So I don't get over to the UK that often, which is why every time I do, I always try and see them.
You try and get there. What kind of music is it?
Alt rock, really, but there's nobody like them.
Right.
That's what I like about them.
We have actually become Desert Island Discs. Have you noticed? Just in the last.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that Chris went to go see a band called Blue October, which you could probably describe as Park Avenue October.
Hey, that's why he's here.
You provide the puns.
Absolutely. I do.
Absolutely. So it was a fantastic game against Harrogate Town on Monday. I want to keep saying Harrogate City. I don't know why, but one thing that really impressed me with Park Avenue, and James Knowles touched on it then, is the quality of the play and the last. I haven't seen Park Avenue this season, but I saw them a few times last year, and it's the same way. You know, they always try and pass the ball. It's really good to see. And Horsfall, like James alluded to, is not the best.
It's not always easy, is it?
No, so they show willing. I mean, players like Boschel for me really stood out. You know, and first win since 2007 in the FA Trophy. Not bad, Chris. Not bad.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Really, a very long time coming. So it's just Kidderminster all over again in terms of the draw, but in terms of that performance, obviously 4-0, that clean sheet was vital, as James alluded to as well, and they haven't had many of them at all this season. They possibly could have had it wrapped up on Saturday, really, and not needed the game on Monday night.
Yeah.
In particular in that game, Simon Lenigan in particular on Saturday had a really good game. You were saying earlier,
absolutely fantastic. I said Patrick Vieira-esque. Bernard thought, who was doing commentary, thought I called him as good as Patrick Vieira. I just want to make it clear, I wasn't saying he was as good as Vieira. I was saying he was a Vieira type player, dominant and big physical presence.
Yeah, he's definitely been a useful acquisition to the squad since coming on
from Leeds, isn't he?
From Leeds, so you'll be keen to see how he's doing anyway. But yeah,
fantastic.
He's put in some decent shifts. Saturday, for me, was definitely the best performance we've seen out of him in a Park Avenue shirt. He said the same himself when I spoke to him after the game. You said that he played well on
grew into the game
as well.
Yeah, really grew into the game.
It's a useful addition in a squad that frankly isn't that big, and with the injuries that they had, and with the injuries at the back. Hence the change in formation really for Monday night. Trying more of a 3-5-2, I think it was by the sounds of it. So
yeah, it worked though. Chalaki was out on the right and he put in a good shift. It all just for the first 20 minutes it was a bit touch and go. Harrogate looked quite dangerous actually, but as soon as Park Avenue scored, they really turned on
just
the
going to the ascendancy and all that.
Absolutely. Walker looks permanently tired. Yeah, I thought he just looks tired, but he has that. He's still running at 80 minutes, but he looked knackered. I thought, should he have been rested? But that's just how he is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he's been bowling up and down that left-hand side all season, every game. So
works hard, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's a hard worker, but it's bound to take its time eventually. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at Park Avenue at the moment, and. The league, I think the cups and the trophies are a welcome distraction, to be honest, at the moment, because the league form, the last couple of league games, 2-4-2 defeats away at Gainsborough and at home to Altrincham, very disappointing results. Gainsborough in particular, John Deasy was very critical, really, of the back four of the Gainsborough game. Just. They weren't organised. Said
it wasn't a bad performance in front of the defence. It was just.
But he said that he felt sorry for the front six because they weren't getting the ball, frankly, from that back line. Altrincham, it was a game that at half time probably should have been 2-1 up, not 2-2. And as James said, it's taking these chances when they come and on holding teams to grinding out. Getting results and victories and that kind of thing. And as we say, that one was a game where at half time it was 2-2, should have been 2-1 really. They shouldn't have let Damien Reeves get his second goal in that game, and then deflected third goal for Altrincham and a free kick that John Lamb will probably feel he should have got down to make it 4-2. Boston, of course, on Saturday they won 3-2 at York Street earlier in the season. That was a brilliant game on a Tuesday night. Great game. It made the long journey down to Boston on a Tuesday night worthwhile, put it that way.
Flying to Boston out there at the minute there.
They are. They've really hit some decent form at the moment. They've lost just one in the last 5, and that was to Brackley, who are a good side. And up in those playoff places.
Yeah.
You look at the points difference. There's 10 points between these two sides.
Yeah.
Park Avenue 8th, Boston 2nd on 31 points. If Park Avenue can, and I think they could well take all 3 points on Saturday, they need to start reeling teams in.
Yeah.
They need to reel in this playoff pack basically with teams that are lying in that top 6 area. As James said, they need to start turning some of these draws into wins basically, otherwise they're going to end up slipping away from the playoff hunt.
What score then have you gone for? I've gone 2-0 to Park Avenue. I think from what I've seen on Monday.
This is a tough one because Boston score goals.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for another goal fest, as with all my predictions, for a 3-2 Park Avenue win.
3-2 Park Avenue. Tim, what do you think?
Well, Park Avenue no doubt can score goals, and with getting Davidson back, that's going to be a bit of a boost for him as well. But for me, Park Avenue's main problem is plugging it in, just not letting them goals in. I mean, it's just one of them, innit? I mean, you can fill a sink, but without putting a plug in, you're not going to do anything about it. So
no.
It makes sense.
Most bizarre analogy of the night.
It is.
You've come up with a few analogies tonight, haven't you?
I must have read a book or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Swallowed a thesaurus.
All I'm saying is, you look at the goal difference of Boston, they're able to shut it up. Yeah, maybe that's the 10 point. Maybe that's what the difference 10 is between the 10 points.
Yeah.
They've got a plus 10 goal difference. And who knows if Park Avenue had managed to, keep a few more clean sheets, they might have got that 10 points, they might be further up the table. But I think I've gone for a 3-1 win to Boston.
Right. We'll
different.
Wait.
Sorry, Park Avenue fans, but it's a little bit different for me this week.
We'll wait and see.
You have to tune in on Saturday and find out.
I will tune
in. BCB 106.6 FM for live match coverage, and we'll see what they can do. Right, we're having a look at Huddersfield now. I'm delighted to say joining us on the line is the Huddersfield Examiner's Doug Thompson. Hi, Doug.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So there's been a little bit of a break for Huddersfield. Obviously, recent form's not been great. We touched upon that last week. How do you think the international break's going to affect Huddersfield? Obviously, going into a big game against Wednesday, a Yorkshire derby. Do you think it's been a good break for them?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, you'd normally say after a game like Birmingham, where they were a bit disappointed, you'd want to get back into action as quick as possible, really. But, the fixtures are the fixtures, and at least it's given them time to, address a few issues, maybe get a few little injury niggles sorted out, and just have a sort of regroup on the training ground, as it were. So this time, the international players, or the ones who've been away on duty, have all come back fairly soon. Not like a normal international break where you're only back on the Thursday before the game. So they've had plenty of time to train together and to get ready for the Wednesday game and have a bit of a rest as well. So I think, you've got to take the positives from the international breaks these days.
What do you sense the mood is around the camp with Town then? Is it I mean, we talked about last week possibly similarities to what happened with Grayson when he was there and getting into a bit of slump form-wise. What do you sense the mood to be amongst the players?
I think it's still quite positive. I think the feeling is, it's not a sort of desperate a situation as it was last season. Obviously, this time last year, the slump was sort of really just starting.
Yeah.
It sort of took hold really sort of late December into January, and this time I think, other than the Birmingham game, they've been pretty competitive in every game, and arguably could have got something from most of the games. So I think the feeling is definitely that they're closer to where they want to be, if not the finished article. There's obviously a lot of improvements still to be made, and a lot of points that have been not thrown away, but points they could have had that which they haven't gained. But I think the feeling is definitely more positive than last season.
Hi, Doug. It's Tim.
Hi, Tim.
I was wondering, could Saturday's game for Huddersfield be possibly a turning point in the season, like a crossroad kind of thing? Because if, like we said last week, Huddersfield, I think there's 7 points from the playoffs and 6 points from the bottom, as gauging whereabouts they are in the league.
Yeah.
A loss to Wednesday, could that start to see them possibly lose a bit of that confidence and start to look down rather than up? But then, if they win against Wednesday, could that then start them allow Huddersfield to start looking up a little bit more?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you always hope that a win's going to sort of kickstart a good run, maybe after the Leeds win, we all thought that, and then obviously, the next two games, disappointed. But, yeah, I mean, the sooner they get wins on the body, the more points you get. It's a pretty obvious thing, but, every point counts in this division, really, as we saw last season when it was so tight, So, sometimes even a draw is, a good outcome, really. And, we keep saying it, but it is such a tight division that, it's not easy. You look on paper and you think that, Town should be able to go and win at Sheffield Wednesday, but then you look a bit closely at Wednesday and, they've only lost one in the last 6 games, even though they're down where they are. So, a tough nut to crack, and it's going to be a difficult game. But, you do want to build up a bit of momentum, but in this division it is very difficult to do that.
Absolutely. And looking at the game against Sheffield Wednesday, you mentioned they've done a little bit better recently, but you would fancy Town for that one, Doug?
Yeah, you would. Funnily enough, I was looking at the bookies odds today, and they fancy Sheffield Wednesday, which is interesting. Obviously, you say bookies don't often get it wrong, but certainly, I mean, they've got a good record at Hillsborough. There's been lots of thrills and spills over the years in games there, certainly in recent years. And you would fancy them to go and at least be competitive over there. And I think they should be competitive, and have a reasonable chance of winning. But maybe not quite as easy as some people would think.
No. And elsewhere in the squad, it's extremely disappointing for Town fans that Peter Clark, captain, is going to be out for 6 weeks. But interesting to know that he's been elected to the PFA Chairman Committee.
Yeah, I mean, he's quite a forceful character, Pete, and he's a real leader. And, he's a good talker. He thinks about things before he speaks. And, he's a good knowledge of the game and a good sort of knowledge of being a professional footballer, really. So, yeah, good choice. It's quite a prestigious thing to be, really. It's not something that Huddersfield have had in the past. So it'd be interesting to follow him. I've spoken to him a couple of times about, what kind of things he's going to be doing at the PFA. And, such a powerful organisation, aren't they, and a rich organisation. It's a very interesting body to be part of, I expect.
Oh, so is this part of the restructuring since Richie Humphries has gone on board then, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the annual meeting took place last week at which Richie Humphries became chairman. Obviously, Clark Carlisle stepped down because he's no longer playing in professional football. I mean, Richie Humphries is an interesting character as well, isn't he? So, a Sheffield lad, and came to Wednesday's back at Chesterfield now. And I mean, he's got great experience, obviously, across every division that he could have. And Pete Clark as well, to a degree. He's been not in League Two, but he's been League One all the way to the Premier League. So interesting, yeah. And I think the places on the management committee sort of come up for election every year. And it's obviously down to fellow members to elect. So, it's quite an interesting mix of people. Obviously, Casey Stoner's on there as well. It's the first female representative. So, it's good to see that, football's sort of reaching out and taking in all aspects of the game.
Absolutely. Now, Jonathan Hogg's going to be back, isn't he, from injury as well? So that's a boost to Town as well.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he's a good player, Jonathan Hogg. He's one of those kind of players that you notice really when he's not playing, if that doesn't sound daft. He gets around with the sort of nitty-gritty side of things. He's particularly good at breaking up opposition attacks, and he covers a huge amount of ground. The stats show that, he sort of covers 85% of the pitch, and he does a huge amount of running in the game. So you obviously, miss a player like that, just as you miss somebody like James Vaughan. So it's good to have both of them back.
Absolutely. Well, Doug, thanks very much for joining us.
No, pleasure. Sorry, it's a pleasure.
Nice one. Cheers, mate. Thank you. See you later, mate. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. There we go. So that's the Huddersfield Examiners, Doug Thompson there, chatting to us about Huddersfield. So it is the Yorkshire derby, fellas. What do we think?
Well, I think, as Doug said there, James Vaughan's back. I think that's just going to... I think
so important, isn't it?
It is. I think the problem Huddersfield have had in the past couple of games is... not finishing them off, but keeping a foothold in the game. Like you see against Wigan. Wigan went on and scored, even though Huddersfield had a great amount of possession in that game. And Birmingham, they just didn't have the foothold in it at all. And even Mark Robbins said they didn't turn up on the day. So I think with Sheffield Wednesday, I think James Vaughan will help them keep that foothold and even possibly nick a winner. So I've gone for Wednesday 1, Huddersfield 2.
I've gone for 1-1 myself. Now, Chris, it was interesting. Like Doug mentioned, they thought the win against Leeds was going to set Huddersfield on the way. It's not really worked out, and they were poor against Birmingham, whereas games previous had at least put in a good performance, but they were just really bad against Birmingham. So international break, has that come at a good time for them then?
Quite
kind of regroup.
Yeah. You'd like to think so that this international break for all sides is a nice chance to, as Doug said, get niggling injuries sorted and get what you'd hope anyway in most cases, to be a fully squad sort of thing, together and ready to go. It's a nice break, and obviously after the disappointing defeat, of course, Lee Clark, going to the John Smith Stadium, going away with the whole 3 points. So it's disappointing in that respect. I think for this one, Sheffield Wednesday, nice Yorkshire derby lunchtime kickoff as well. I think there's going to be goals in it.
Goals.
I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw.
3-3 draw. Well, I've gone for a draw, so I've gone 1-1. So.
I think there's going to be more goals than that. I mean, Wednesday, they've not been too bad. They got a great win against Reading a couple of weeks ago. When they hit him for 5, I think it was in that game. So, I think there'll be goals in this one. Defensively, neither side are spectacular at the moment. So I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. Bit of a goal fest.
I see the international break a bit like, it's like a boxing match, isn't it? When they ring the bell and they go back to the corner. That's how I see Huddersfield at the moment. I feel like they've had a really tough run. Taken a couple of punches.
Taking a bit of a pounding.
Taking a bit of pounding.
Cornerman's working on it.
And then it's like, ding, ding, get to you. And Huddersfield are able to regroup from that. Right. I think that works.
That's a good I like that analogy. Well done.
It's different.
It is.
Right, we're having a look at Bradford City now, and joining us on the telephone is Pete Chapman. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Stephen.
So it was exciting stuff on Sunday in front of the Sky cameras, a 3-3 draw against Coventry. What did you make of it? A little bit of controversy with the refereeing again?
Almost certainly, very, very controversial decisions. Probably not the one most people think. From where I was sat, I couldn't really see whether it had been handball, but fortunately Pulse Radio are just in front of me, and they have a television with them, and obviously telly's slightly behind live. You could watch it, and to me it was a clear handball.
Yeah.
The one that got me was why wasn't a penalty given for a deliberate trip on Meredith in the first half. We spoke to Phil Parkinson about it afterwards. He was watching it on the screen in the press room, and he said too honest. He was just too honest there. And Steve Parkin did the interviews today, and he said the same thing. That players are told not to dive, yet when they stay on their feet and have clearly been impeded, nothing's given anyway. So it's a difficult situation for players. But yeah, I mean the match was fantastic. It showed everything that's good, I suppose, and bad about football. I mean, some of the defending was woeful, yet some of the attacking was superb, and probably had the best 4 strikers in this division on show.
Absolutely.
Hi, Pete, it's Tim.
Hiya.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree with you on the Meredith one. I'm going to have to go with the other Bradford City legend, Peter Beagrie, on the television. I do agree. I think Beagrie said that Meredith stood on the Coventry defender's foot, and as the defender moved his foot, that knocked Meredith's balance. But as far as the penalty that was given, to be perfectly honest, I saw a lot of Coventry fans that were complaining about it, saying that it was controversial, but you've got 30 seconds left of the game. The tactic, the long ball up to the top and Hansen heading it down, it was only going to go to De Vita. I don't understand why he even raised his hands in the first place.
Both hands in the air, and
you can't complain against something like that.
No, definitely not. And you have to say, Nicky Wells put it away very, very, very well under pressure. I mean, there must have been immense pressure on him.
I mean, we City fans, we know how Kevin Friend does make the letter to the law. He plays a game to the letter of the law, at Wembley, St Jukoff. And I don't think in the last 30 seconds of the game, like whether it's the 93rd minute or the 72nd minute, if you raise your hands up in the box and it touches your hands, Kevin Friend will give a penalty for it.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, whatever happens, wherever it happens, whatever time of the game it happens, the same decision should be given. Which is, I mean, you get footballers complaining all the time saying, if that had happened outside the box, it would have been a free kick, so why haven't they got a penalty? Exactly the same thing with the time. If he'd done that earlier in the game, it would have been a penalty. Just because it's the last action of the game doesn't make it not a penalty.
No, I respect him for it, though.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, looking at it, were you a bit worried at the start? I mean, two early Coventry goals, it looked like it could have been a bit of a walloping at first, but the City, they showed some grit then and turned it around.
I think, Steve Parkin said the same thing today. He said that what he was most pleased with was the determination to get back in it, and probably the third Coventry goal came about as a result of that they were pushing to get in front. They were well on top, and it broke away. They broke away to Coventry, and you can't... tried to show him down the outside, and you can't give the guy any time at all on the ball. He's such a good striker. But I mean, the first 2 Coventry goals both came from defensive errors.
you could say that both the first two, all three with the penalty, came from defensive errors. And has to be said as well, the first Coventry goal was offside. I think the second Bradford goal was offside. So I suppose these things balance themselves up over the game and over the season.
What did you sense the mood was in the camp? I mean, it's been a bit of a winless streak going at the moment. How did you find the atmosphere up there today?
I didn't actually see any of the players. They were all on the training pitch when I got there, and they were all in having their nutrition and what have you afterwards. But it seemed quite positive. I think I tweeted after the game that it was only 1 point, but it'll feel like 3 because of the manner that they got it. And then it was quite clear with Presley, the Coventry manager, he was very, very, very disappointed. I mean, to the extent of being angry and saying some things he probably regrets now afterwards. But you could see how gutted he was.
And obviously now, sorry Tim, go on.
Oh, sorry, Pete. I was just going to say, just a couple of points, really, on what you've said about the 4 best strikers in the league, but possibly 2 of the worst defences. I mean, some of the defending was shocking. I mean, I saw, that Coventry's line was just getting higher and higher and higher, and that was just inviting City to get back into the game.
Especially when you've got a player like Wells. Yeah.
Exactly. I think they tried to get the balance of, if they played too deep, it'd be playing into Hanson's hands, but then if they came up too high, then that'd be playing into Naki Wells' hands, and they just couldn't handle that balance, which I think Presley was, I know they've buried the hatchet now, him and Parkinson, but I think he was papering over the crack saying Bradford only play one way. I think what he was more angry with was, we only play one way, but they didn't know how to deal with it. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Parkin said today that they'd done their homework at Bradford. They knew how to get at the Coventry City defence, and they did that, and it paid off.
It did.
And looking at the next game, MK Dons, they're coming in on a rich vein of form there. That's going to be a tough one, isn't it?
It's going to be a very tough one, and whatever players say about each game's different. The back of their mind is going to be the last away game and the worst performance in I don't know how long at Rotherham. But then you do have to say MK Dons have got a lot of injuries, and maybe now is the best time to be playing them for Bradford in that sense. But they could do with... I think a draw, they would be happy, though. They'd like to get a win because that winless streak is going on, and they've got Notts County there on Tuesday, of course, rock bottom of the league. And that will bring its own pressures because Bradford will be clear favourites to win that one, and at home as well. And for all, the fans were fantastic on Sunday, but when Coventry were 2-0 up, the ground was silent.
Pete, thanks very much for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you, mate. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye. There we go. So we've heard from Pete Chapman. Fellas, what did we make? It was in front of the Sky cameras. It was a good start from Coventry, but City did well to come back into that, didn't it?
Brilliant game.
Yeah.
Has to be said. Great effort for League One football. Yeah. It was a terrific game. As I said, some 2 top quality strike forces really on show.
It was heart-wrenching. It was just horrible. Like at the end of the first half, I felt like I'd done 90 minutes already. And then when the game actually finished and I walked out the stadium, I actually had a headache. I think it might be just all the adrenaline of just the stress going through it. But I agree. Parky said about the spirit that they showed, and you cannot deny that Bradford showed. They showed what they've showed last season, and something which in the past couple of games they've lacked, apart from the Preston and Wolves game. They've lacked that heart and spirit to go forward. And I think Coventry they realised how poor defensively they actually are.
So going into the game against MK Dons, what do you think there, Tim? What score are you going with that?
You know what, every time I go pessimistic, the opposite happens. So this time I'm going to go optimistic and hope that
hope you're right.
And hope I'm right, cross my fingers. But MK Dons, they've had a run of 4 wins. Loss has got to come sometime on it. So I've gone, and plus with Naki Wells with that confidence and Hansen, the confidence going through the team now, I've gone for a 2-0 win to City.
2-0 win. Chris?
Think a bit closer. As I say, MK Dons, great run of form at the moment. Of course, they played FC Halifax in the Cup as well. Comfortable win against them. Going to go for a 2-2 draw.
I've gone a draw as well. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. OK, we're looking at the Conference Premier now, and joining us on the telephone now is our Halifax Town correspondent. It's Andrew Pinfield. Hi, Andrew.
Evening, Steve.
Thanks for joining us. So everything's going really well for Halifax at the moment. A couple of 4-0 wins, I should say, against Hyde and against Aldershot. It's looking pretty sweet at the moment.
It's going unbelievably well. It's exceeded a lot of people's expectations, actually. We're now in the playoff positions up to 5th. And if we could get some away wins going, then who knows what might happen. But like you say, the away form is the hindering point. But at home, we just we put 4 past Grimsby, 4-0, 3-0 past Welling, 4-0 Hyde, 4-0 Aldershot. So it's not just scoring the goals, it's keeping the clean sheets.
Yeah.
And we've actually gone top scorers now in the Skrill Premier. So like you say, it is very pleasing at the shirt at the minute.
Absolutely. We mentioned him last week, but he's going to get a lot more attention if he continues this way. Lee Gregory, he's got 12 for the season now. He's just absolutely on fire, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, last week we only played him for an hour and he was absolutely outstanding. Not just his goal, but the assists and the way he played. Phil Parkinson was in the stand watching him because City played on Sunday. We had scouts there from MK Dons and Chesterfield, so Lee Gregory is attracting a lot of interest. But what also happens is it raises the games of the other players as well, because they know that they'll be in the shop window. Like young Mark Roberts at the back, he's starting attracting interest. So what happens is scouts go and watch one player, and then if you like 2 or 3, then it's a case that you want to keep your best players, but at the end of the day, we're only part-time, and if a full-time club comes in for them and offers them decent money, it's their career at the end of the day, and they could be away.
Absolutely. And do you think there's a risk then, a serious risk, that a player like Gregory could end up going, say, in January, something like that?
Well, this is the $50,000 question, isn't it? Because with Lee Gregory, he has got...
I hope you get more than that for him, if that happens.
Yeah, well, I think we'll be looking at 200k plus, Steve, but he's got a good job. He's an electrician. He'll get a decent wage playing for Halifax. Does the boy want to go professional? You don't know. These questions have got to be sorted out, but there are 1 or 2 clubs sniffing. And we'd like to keep him... well, he's on contract for this season and next, so it would have to be a silly offer, really, for the club to say he's on his way.
Hello, Andrew. It's Tim.
Hi, Tim.
I'm just going to ask, is that possibly one of the negative points that Halifax have? Or, against, like, for example, teams like Kidderminster and Luton, who can probably keep hold of players because, they've been in the Football League and they've probably got a few more professional contracts on the books. Is that a disadvantage for Halifax, that if they do have part-time players who possibly can just go if they ever get a contract?
It's a good point, is that, Timmy? You look at these big teams in the conference, Wrexham, Kidderminster, Luton, these teams are getting crowds of 4,000 week in, week out. We were struggling crowd-wise down this year. We're up to 1,300, 1,400. Hopefully we will get a few more in the new year if we are pushing for the playoffs. But like you say, it's very difficult when somebody's doing so well to keep your best players when there are potentially League 1 and League 2 clubs looking at them.
Absolutely. Now, coming up next, it's Braintree. They're going reasonable. I mean, they've lost the last couple of games, but what do you expect with that one, Andrew? A continuation of the form?
Well, it'll be a difficult game for us because it's an away fixture. We've got Braintree on Saturday and Hereford away on Tuesday. And if we came back with 4 points, that would be a magnificent achievement from 2 tricky away games. Braintree are sitting there in mid-table, and they're probably overachieving like ourselves. They were probably, at the start of the season, you'd have thought Braintree would be bottom 6, bottom 7, but they've held themselves in the top 10 more or less all season, and they've only just started dipping in form. So let's hope we can catch them on an off day. Absolutely.
And also, just to mention, you'll be meeting Guiseley in the FA Trophy. That's at the end of November. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, that's got to be an intriguing contest. There's no love lost between Halifax and Guiseley. Steve Kittrick, when he's lost the Guiseley job, he's actually been at the Shed the last 6 or 7 occasions, so he's keeping his options open. But Mark Bauer, who's now the Guiseley manager, has watched Halifax last week when we beat Hyde 4-0, so he'll know what to expect. We've got a couple of Halifax old boys at Guiseley. Alex Johnson, I think, has got 1 or 2 goals since his move from the Shea. It's a local derby, it's FA Trophy, anything can happen. But we're pleased because we've got the home draw.
How big on the agenda is the FA Trophy for a club like Halifax Town? I mean, it's a chance to go to Wembley, and there's a nice bit of money if you manage to win it.
That's right, yeah, it's massive, Steve, because people look at the FA Trophy, it's something that we can progress, and it's not like the FA Cup where your aspirations are really to get to the 3rd round. The FA Trophy, you've got a couple of games, and then when you get to the quarter-final stage, you are looking at Wembley Towers, and the prize money's not to be sneezed at either. It's decent money from the sponsors, so it's a competition that all Halifax Town treat very seriously indeed.
Absolutely. Andrew, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers now.
Take care, mate. See you later. Bye-bye. 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 There we go, fellas. So we've heard from Andrew Pinfield there. Halifax Town versus Braintree next. How do we see this one going, Chris?
Oh, it's a tough one. As Andrew leads to, Halifax's away form not the best. As we said, though, Braintree hitting a bit of a blip at the moment in terms of what's been a pretty successful season for them so far. Goals are coming very easily, though, for Halifax at the moment. You know, every time Halifax play, you expect Lee Gregory to end up on the score sheet. I reckon that will probably be the same case this weekend. And I reckon Halifax Town win. I reckon they'll nick it 2-1, perhaps, something like that.
I've gone 3-1. I've gone 3-1, Tim. What about yourself? What do you fancy with that one?
Well, like Chris, I've written down 2-1, but you know that sometimes when when Halifax win, it's because I said Chris. That's why I got mixed up here. It's weird. No, when Halifax win, they win. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if they won a game away, I could guarantee they probably end up winning it 3 or 4-0, just because they just get that bit between the teeth and keep going. I was lucky enough to manage to see some video highlights from the conference, which was quite, and it was Braintree's loss to Luton, and they were very poor defensively. The 2 goals that they conceded were just horrible.
So you would think someone like Lee Gregory, it's perfect, isn't it?
It is. It's all set up for him. However, saying that, I've gone for 2-1, just because of the away form, just because he struggled away from home.
OK, now joining us on the line to discuss all things Guiseley is Colin Robertson. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. We were just debating a couple of seconds ago what you were up to whilst talking to us this week. Was it rock climbing, skydiving? We just don't know,
Just about to read a bedtime story.
Fair enough. Well, we hope we don't put you to sleep anyway. But anyways, let's have a look at Guiseley, and what a fantastic run of form it is now. Everything's looking good under Mark Bauer. It's all positive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been another good week, a fantastic result in the FA Trophy to keep that competition going for us. But, I mean, to be fair, we said a few weeks ago they faced all the tough teams at the top of the division, and they were coming unstuck. But this week, now we're facing many more teams in around the bottom end of the table. But the side's improving, but, once again, we're getting the wins from those games. So, it's been good. It's been great.
Well,
last Saturday, first clean sheet since Workington in August. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, you'd had a worse defensive record than Park Avenue if that was possible. It was unbelievable. Looking at that FA Trophy match against Histon, then one name that stands out, Rothery. He set up the goals. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about Rothery for those that don't know about him? Quite a player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a cracking player, and he's been at the club a good few years. Real live wire. Just plays behind the front man in the middle of a 3 in a 4-2-3-1. And very, very creative. Someone who could have gone on to bigger things. I think he had an injury in his early career, but since he's been at Guys, he's always been one of those really, really pivotal players, and always one who, unfortunately for us, seems to get an injury at just the wrong time. A couple of seasons ago, he was flying, top scorer from a kind of more attacking midfield position, and was in absolutely marvellous form until he got crocked in a West Riding County Cup game of all things, and that scuppered that promotion chance a little bit. But he seemed to be off the form a little bit, but has come into things really well recently. And Saturday had another tremendous game once again. And
Alex Johnson, he scored in his 3rd consecutive home game since joining from Halifax. He's done okay, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's looking the part for me. He goes up against his defender and gets his back into the man. Wins a lot of free kicks, but also wins the ball too. He does tend to go to ground quite a lot, but quite often because he's in such a close proximity to the striker that he'll invite a free kick or invite a foul. So he's also banging the goals in. But I mean, never mind Alex Johnson being the goal scorer. It's our on loan defender, Danny Hall. He's the man who's really banging the bit at the moment. 2 in 2. We can't crock that. Well, 2 in 1.5 because he had to go off at half time.
That's his secret weapon from the back.
Well, I tell you what, a shame. I don't think we had any cameras there on Saturday, but the goal he scored was an absolute beauty from the edge of the area. A volley, the ball up in the air, he just connected with it, not like a centre-half at all. Flew into the top right-hand corner, an absolute corker.
How do you feel about the FA Trophy, Colin? Do you think it's something that clubs like Guiseley will look at? It's a possible Wembley trip, isn't it? And there's a nice little prize at the end, money-wise as well.
Don't even know why the question's being asked. I think it's a top FA competition. Prize money in it. A chance to get to Wembley if that's possible. It's the senior non-league cup. At the end of the day, if you get to the final, you're quite often on at Wembley and on live television on one of the channels somewhere, and it's a great competition. I mean, very great memories. I think in recent years for Guiseley, came close to progressing back in the 90s in a corking sort of semi-final against Runcorn. Came out Runcorn were a top non-league side at that time, and in recent years they've had visits to Cambridge and hosted Luton Town in the quarters. So no, it's a great competition, and you can get there quickly. I mean, we have very few rounds between now and the final, hence why it's a two-legged semi. So no, it's a very important competition. Mark Bow set his stall out as well that the guys who need to progress as much as possible, especially after going out of the FA Cup so early on.
Hi, Colin. It's Chris.
Hey up, Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. Of course, FA Trophy, it's Halifax. We've seen Guiseley and Halifax do battle over the last couple of years in the league. You've just, mouth-watering tight, really, isn't it, for the Lions fans?
Yeah, I must admit, I groaned when it came out with the draw. I thought, not again. 5 times in 2013 we've played them. 5 times, and now this is going to be 6th. It's very well-worn foes in recent times. I think it's going to be really tough as well. There'll be a lot at stake, a lot of pride at stake, I'm sure, for both sides. And a lot at stake generally, because it's obviously important for both teams to progress. I don't think we could have got a tougher tie, to be honest. Even facing one of the promotion teams early doors, and we could have one of the promotion teams, from the conference early doors. You couldn't ask for a harder tie, a Kidderminster or so on that Avenue have got, because I think Halifax are one of those teams in form, and they'll have that extra level of determination to see off Guiseley.
And of course, there's that many links as well between the two sides in terms of the playing staff.
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, Kevin Holsgrove, Simon Ainge, and
Josh Wilson as well.
Josh Wilson, yes, that's it. I knew I'd get a third one to remember. They're 3 top quality players that left Guiseley for Halifax in the pre-season. We've just taken on Alex Johnson. Mark Bauer is also very well versed with Halifax in his playing career. So yeah, I think both sets of players will certainly be wanting to do one over their former rivals. Former team.
Absolutely. And Colin, Oxford City in the league, how do we see that one going?
Banana skin, isn't it? Team right near the bottom, supposedly not in great form, but I don't think they'll be very easy at all. The striker Simons, who came from Worcester, he was a real handful for us when we faced them last season. I think he'll be one to watch. They've got a lot of investment in that club. They've got some good players in that side, and they thumped Stockport 4-1 not so long ago. They haven't had great results recently, but I think they could be one of those teams that will be very tough to beat. I think Guiseley, great run of form, will be looking at this one thinking we've got to get the 3 points, and I think we actually really do. But I think it's going to be very, very tough.
Colin, thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Speak to you later. Take care,
See
mate.
You later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Cheers, mate. Right, so we've heard from Colin Robertson there. It's Guiseley versus Oxford. I've gone for 3-0 to Guiseley. I think they'll sort this one out. What do you reckon, Tim?
I've gone. I think Guiseley will win it, but I don't think Oxford will make it easy for them. I mean, just heard Colin there talking about the 4-1 win against Stockport, and even a 2-1 win against Stalybridge is quite impressive, really. But both them results came at home, so I think that. On the road they have struggled a bit. They've got they lost to Harrogate and got a draw at Histon. But I think Guiseley can nick this 2-1.
2-1. Chris, what do you think?
I think there's going to be just, again, goals. Maybe this is me just being optimistic in my predictions, but now, to be fair, obviously I saw Oxford City when they came to the Horsford to play Park Avenue relatively late in the season, 3-0 up at half-time. They were finished 3-3. As Colin alluded to, Mike Simmons, top striker for this level of football, and Oxford have done very well, frankly, to entice into a side that generally you look at as a mid-table or lower mid-table side, really. Yeah. But they've got some good individuals, and it's one of those, if they perform on the day, they can beat anybody. I think Guiseley, though, great run of form, scoring for fun at the moment. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 Guiseley win.
3-2 Guiseley win. There we go. We'll see what happens. OK, we're going to have a look at Leeds United now. And unfortunately, we haven't got Jennifer Berry on the line tonight. But the big news this week has been about this takeover bid. And Jen did text me and she said, Lucas is the king, the return of the king, it's meant to be. So, guys, Lucas Radebe, Leeds United legend, obviously. And it's been a bit of a bizarre week if you've been following this. Is it a takeover or is it just an investment? It's come out today that he wants to work alongside JFH as part of a consortium. It's been a bit weird.
It's a bit hit and miss, and nobody's really quite sure exactly what's going on, do they?
No, I don't think a £7 million bid apparently was tabled, and JFH called it derisory, which probably is after they paid 50-odd million for the club. But was that investment? Well, this
is the thing. You'd think that would be, not for a percentage, so to speak, but, just an investment into the club. Even the world's worst businessman wouldn't sell a club for 7 after paying 50-odd for it or whatever.
This is Leeds support, but they might be cutting the losses. This is too much. Get out of this one. Yeah.
That'd be a hefty loss on bargain. So, it's a bizarre situation. Yeah. Obviously, Lucas Radebe, a man with the club very much at heart for all his time there. If it's trying to work with GFH and just to add some extra funding to the club and that kind of thing, then you kind of wonder why they'd turn it down. But as we say, GFH have denied everything basically. What was it, a derisory offer or something along that lines, which that does make it make it sound like they wanted to take it over.
It's quite bizarre, isn't it, Tim? Have you been following this? What do you make of this?
I've been lost with it.
Yeah,
when did Leeds? Yeah. Like every time, like anything to do with off the pitch things in Leeds, it's always to do with a takeover, and it can start to get messy. I mean, obviously, a worst case scenario, it can end up in a worst case scenario looking like Portsmouth, where no one knew who looked after the club. But I definitely think that the problem with some of these owners, and you could probably argue GFH might fit into this brand, is there isn't any of that. The love for the actual club. Some people just see it as a cash cow. Yeah. You have them people, the group that have just bought Sheffield United. Why have they picked Sheffield United? Out of every other club in the Premier League, why have they gone to League One and picked Sheffield United? So I think having Lucas Radebe on board,
it's a good connection. Isn't it?
It'd be someone who actually cares about the club. Yeah. I mean, at Bradford City, Mark Lawn, he's had his critics, but he actually cares about Bradford City. And then, you put it on the flip side to Newcastle, you got Mike Ashley. Does he only see it as a cash cow, or does he care for Newcastle? That debate.
With Radebe, there's no doubt, is there? No, I mean, I've always thought it's strange how Leeds haven't kind of taken advantage of Radebe's persona. I mean, Leeds is kind of an image, a club that's image needs a bit of work, a bit of rehabilitation, and no one's better for that than...
He's Leeds through and through, isn't he,
Nelson Mandela called Lucas Radebe his hero. We need this guy at Leeds. This is, You
never know, he could bring some of the old gang back as well. Dominic Matteo, David Batty, get all the old favourites back.
Absolutely.
David O'Leary.
Harry Kuehl, Mark Viduka, Alan Smith,
Harry Kuehl's
Jason
agent.
Wilcox.
Just get all the old boys back. But, when a club, do we see enough of that? I think you make a great point, Tim, the fact that, with a lot of these takeovers and people involved in clubs that get involved, that is the heart really in it. And someone like Radebe obviously holds the club close to his heart. It's going to be done for the right reasons, don't you? Or you would hope so, anyway.
Yeah, well, how else, why else would he want to get involved? I mean, if he thought the club was going absolutely fine, he'd probably just carry on going, maybe sitting in his box, and because I'm pretty sure he's probably got a box at Elland Road just to watch the games. But if he wants to
got a bar named after him somewhere.
I think he has actually. Well, he's got a beer, Radder beer. Oh, that's named after him. I mean, that's about the best we've done with Radder beer after.
I thought in my head the Radder bar was good, but the Radder beer,
the Radder beer is
even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking at Leeds, it's been a bit of a mixed season so far, but there's a bit of optimism creeping in now, Chris, and they've picked up a couple of great wins. Obviously, that magnificent game against Charlton, Ross McCormack scoring 4 goals. So they come into the Bra game on Saturday, Middlesbrough game on a bit of form. Are Leeds a threat for the playoffs? Do you think there's a possibility? Are they a realistic, outside bet for the playoffs?
We talked about this earlier on in the season. Frankly, we couldn't really decide then either at the time.
We're not clear now, are
we? Which is the thing. We're 15 games into the season, and frankly, no, we're not a great deal clear. What are they? 23 points, 8th in the league. It's the Championship, though. Yeah, anything can happen.
Absolutely.
When take for example a few years back when Sunderland, when Roy Keane, that took over, they were second bottom of the league and doomed, and he took them, automatically up. So,
absolutely.
It's a league where literally anything can happen.
Yeah. So you never know, do you?
Well, this is the thing. You never know. Depending on what does happen, whether investment comes from elsewhere, or anything along those lines happens. They've started to get players playing properly. It's taken a bit of time, I think, for McDermott, hasn't it, to start to get things going. He still says they're a work in progress. But
the one thing I really like about McDermott actually is his willingness to experiment. First of all, his willingness to kind of give different players, different positions. Rudy Austin has found a place for him now, and he's just feeding McCormick time and time again. And he admitted himself he was still trying to figure the whole thing out. But he seems to have got a formula, doesn't he, Tim? Now,
Rudy and McCormack really are fitting together quite, it's like Austin does all the work, McCormack, and McCormack's just like the guy that...
He's the man that finishes it, though, isn't it? It's what he does.
Which is the important bit.
Come on, Tim, there's got to be an analogy here, mate. Good, please.
I'm going to stay away from analogies, because the last one was poor, right?
At least I was embarrassed.
But like McDermott says, against Charlton, they proved that they were a work in progress. Yeah. And, some people could argue one-man team with the 4 goals from McCormack, but
says the City fan, Mr. Wells over here.
I think what is key though, coming back to Leeds, and what's key is that it wasn't that long. Was it quite recently? McCormack signed a new contract, I believe, didn't he?
Absolutely.
And it's a sign of intent from both McDermott, from the club, and from the key players like Ross McCormack, that they want to be at Elland Road, and that they can see. Everything's starting to come together. People want to stay there. People aren't thinking, been here for a little while.
See what with Becky or Snodgrass.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You look at the likes of them that have been there. There's been potential for them to do something, but it's not happened, and they've, effectively jumped on a canal boat and sailed to East Anglia.
Absolutely.
A canary boat.
But it's a signal of intent from players like Ross McCormack that signing what was it, 4 or 5 year deal? I think it was a long-term deal. So there's definitely a long-term plan under a manager like Brian McDermott as well, who he isn't a manager that's going to come in and just turn things around instantly. He plans. There's a long-term plan from the management now at Elland Road.
And that's not
that can only bring
before,
good things. Well, it hasn't.
That's the thing. I think McDermott. More than the coaching ability and the tactical play, McDermott would be able to sit down and talk to a player and make the player know they're going to be part of something, right? Yeah. And I think that McDermott has said that to McCormack to make him want to stay there, because why else would he sign a 5-year contract or 4-year contract or whatever
He's been told the plan, and
he's been told the plan.
And he likes it.
And you can see it in January. Leeds getting a few more signings in, but those signings wouldn't just be an off-the-cuff signing. There will be people that McDermott knows and will know what they can do and what they can add to the team. And that's the thing. McDermott's been around, he knows it, whereas Warnock, he didn't.
It was short.
Let's face it, Warnock, I like Warnock as a manager, and he's got a good track record, but he was brought in
short-termism, isn't it?
coming, but we want promotion next season, and that was never really going to happen when you look at Leeds back then.
Absolutely not. Interesting to note that they're playing Middlesbrough next. Middlesbrough
changes there as well.
Yeah, well, I heard a debate about this. Karanka, they've got in. Are they going for a bit of a Southampton Pochettino style? Only problem is now, is this a bit worrying for English managers? I mean, if you're a young English manager, you've come out of the game, you've done your badges, and then you see Karanka getting what's a good job. Let's face it, Middlesbrough's a good, solid Championship job, isn't it, for someone? Is that a bit disheartening, would you say? I mean, we're going to get onto the problems of English football after the overnight shortly, but just in terms of, this could be a new trend for
from a
Championship
coaching
teams,
and a management point of view, quite possibly. It's, you look at it, Aitor Karanka, 3-year deal. He was Jose Mourinho's, number 2 when Mourinho was at Real Madrid. So this is somebody with a good pedigree behind him. But from an English, point of view, and from a young manager, for example, wanting to progress in their career, it's a bit of a kick in the gonads, really, isn't it? Because,
it is.
There's a lot of good young managers, I think, across the leagues, and nowadays, the one thing that's always talked about when a job like a Championship job comes up anyway is a lot of the candidates are these up and coming managers from League 1, League 2, whatever. And I'll say, when you bring in something that was Jose Mourinho's number 2 at Real Madrid, which is a good
which sounds so glamorous,
exactly,
doesn't it?
Does.
So
it does make you wonder and slightly worry for the English coaches and managers.
4 of the 20 managers in the Premier League are English, and now you consider
that's worrying. I think
you consider that trend is now going down into the Championship.
That's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about.
Franco Zola, fantastic, love the guy, fantastic manager, doing really well with Watford, but. If anything,
you got the Spaniard at Brighton as well.
Can someone answer me this? Or why Brian Deane, for example, is a player that's played a lot of clubs, he's had a good solid career. He's having to manage in Norway because he can't get an opportunity over here. I mean, what does that say? And then we get a guy because he's been Mourinho's number 2, getting a really good Championship job like that.
I'd say it's not really English, but the influence of Scottish and Irish and Welsh managers is actually becoming quite high as well. I'm not saying it's a problem.
No.
If anything, it's probably quite a positive thing, especially for those countries British, internationally.
But it's because they can't produce good players, that's why. I'm kidding.
What is it that they say? If you're a poor player, you're a good manager, but good
Which
players...
explains the Scots.
Yeah,
that's it. I am joking. Please
send your complaints to Gmail at...
Please don't tweet us and complain. I am only kidding.
So what's that Twitter handle? CB Media?
But it is, it is a trend that's coming down into the Championship now. But you
can't see it going any lower, though, can you?
No.
You can't imagine continental. Management at Accrington Stanley and Exeter.
You've got Uwe Rosler.
You've got Uwe Rosler doing a good job at Brentford, to be fair. But you can't imagine,
Park Avenue's new manager,
Ivan Helguera or something, or
Campo, Ivan Campo,
Ivan
the new
Campo,
Guiseley
the big
manager,
Afro, new Guiseley manager, or
the player who won the Liechtenstein Premier League,
which isn't even football. That's the most worrying thing. So we'll come more to that in a moment. But getting back to the Leeds Middlesbrough game, I've gone 2-0 Leeds for that one. What are you doing, fellas, for that one?
I'm gone for a conservative 2-1.
2-1-2 Leeds, or
unfortunately,
he's gone with his heart.
Gone with my heart, gone with my head, I think.
Depends what Karanka's been telling the Middlesbrough players for the last couple of weeks since he's taken over.
Does he speak English?
It'll be like Pochettino. He'll have a translator.
Yeah. Well, apparently Pochettino does speak English, but he refuses to speak to the media.
Not does he speak English, does he speak Teesside? That's the... My girlfriend's from Teesside, I'm allowed to say that.
I think, especially with Pochettino, it's because, he doesn't want anything lost in translation, quite frankly, that can be twisted by the press.
Yeah, it's clever, isn't it, really?
Yeah, to an extent, that makes some decent sense, given, we know how the press can twist things.
Yeah.
In terms of this game... Middlesbrough, 16th.
Yeah.
Bit of a sleeping giant, shall we say.
Yeah.
That's just stumbled and stuttered. And, that a couple of years ago, they were, playoff hopefuls there or thereabouts kind of thing, and they've just stumbled and fallen away over the last couple of seasons, and there hasn't been a great deal of signs of improvement. They've had to sell quite a few big players, but they have got a good conveyor belt, so to speak, of their youth system. That the youth they've got their very players. Good, producing some good talent. But I am going to go Leeds win. I think I'm going to go for not a goal fest of a 1-0 Leeds win.
Just talking about Middlesbrough, we were just talking about owners earlier. Steve Gibson cares about Middlesbrough. Yes. He's one of the last of the dying breed of chairmen who actually care about the local hometown club.
Yeah, he's a popular guy in here.
He is a popular guy up there, yeah.
And quite rightly.
Okay, well, we're going to look back at the international fixtures that were played earlier in the week, and we'll start. Where else can we start? We've lost to Germany at Wembley again.
Do we have to talk about this?
We have to dissect what's going on now. They've been slaughtered of England since this. Now, I have to say, I thought it wasn't quite as bad as everybody made out. I think when Rooney went off, I think we lost total focus up front and we were pretty much useless for the last 15 minutes. But I thought, going and this idea that it was Germany B team, you look at that photo. I mean, Royce, Götze and Kroos
in behind Max Kroos as well, who's having a great season for Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Fantastic players. So, is it as big a disaster as being made out? Has it taken the shine off going to Rio? What did we actually think of the game?
I think it's just slightly worrying that it highlights the lack of depth in the English game and in the English players. Frankly, I saw something recently which said basically when it comes to Germany that they've got 3 players basically for every position. You look at the amount of great goalkeepers and just throughout the team. There's always at least 2 world-class candidates basically for each position on the pitch.
I think there's only striking department where they're a little bit short.
Slightly. I'm trying to think who they've got. You've got
Gomez, haven't they?
Mario Gomez. Miroslav Klose is technically still not retired from international, but he's 35, I think he is now. But great goal scorer. There's the guy Max Kroos.
I like the tweets people saying, why isn't Lewandowski being called up to Germany?
Oh,
Podolski.
On a different note, can't believe that Poland, they're not going to the World Cup, obviously. We'll talk about that later. But from this Germany point of view, it's worrying because it highlights the lack of depth that England have. When you look beyond Rooney and our strike force, and I have to say I'm pleased to see players like Ricky Lambert and Jay Rodriguez both getting a chance,
but they're not good enough.
They're not.
They don't do enough, do they? Or there's not enough. When you look
Lambert
at what Germany could do. Yeah.
Rodriguez, I think, is one to grow.
Lallana was good, though, wasn't he? Lallana's been a big success, hasn't he?
Big fan of Lallana. He's a really good talent. I think the thing that we can take positives from at the moment is the England under-21 side. To be fair, if you look at the creative players, I mean, they smashed San Marino, which I know it's San Marino, but a 9-0 win.
They've been doing really well.
They've been doing really well. They're playing. There's a lot more flair players, shall we say, in that England under-21 side. So there's potential for the future. But with the current batch, and you look at the backup players, or it's somewhat worrying.
See, my problem with it is we're talking about the depth of the German squad and how deep they are. The England squad, for me, I think the Jay Rodriguez, Lallana and Lambert has actually shone a light on something where on this back doorstep we've got the Football League where all these English players, it seems like a place just to dump English players who were what youth academies would call your could-have-beens or never-will-be's and stuff like that. I mean, I did some research this week, and Liverpool Academy, they let Thomas Insko, David Nugent, which admittedly, yes, you could argue he's not good enough, but...
Hey, one goal.
Had
even if he did nick it.
Had they been kept on at an earlier age, given a chance,
absolutely,
given the facilities, given the coaching, could they be, decent?
Thing, Tom Ince in particular, he's absolutely brilliant player, such a great prospect, doing some great things in the England under-21 side as well. But he's had to make that drop down.
It infuriates me. The two teams that I think are the absolute worst for it are Manchester City and Chelsea. I hate the idea that they've been, obviously they've been funded heavily in the last 10 years. They've had massive success, etc. But they've nobody in their clubs feels any kind of sense of we have to develop our own players. Having said that, I know Manchester City have made a great strides with their academy, and they said, in a few years, hopefully they'll produce players. However, we were saying earlier about this 8-year-old Argentinian kid. Now that's another thing. Your youth recruitment, if you cast your net across the world, so you're still not going to have great English players coming through an academy. It's just going to be, we nicked this Spanish lad when he was 8, and we nicked this Brazilian when he was 11.
Well, this is the thing we were saying, which club was it? But that 8-year-old Argentinian lad.
Was it Chelsea or was it Man City? It's always one of them, isn't it? It's always them, isn't it?
Chelsea, Man United.
I don't know if you've seen the footage of this particular 8-year-old's great goal, but a couple of Marseille turns.
Stick him on the blog. We'll get it on the blog.
And then he finished it well, but it took a deflection. It was just
you're wasting your time, Man City.
It was just the Marseille turns in the build-up that made it look good. To be fair, however, this kid's 8 and he's got far more footballing talent than I do, so I'm not going to criticise him.
Is it the Zidane turn one?
Yeah,
I've seen that. Yeah, it's a deflection.
For me, it's the more worrying thing is, I'll bring it back to England, is the powerhouses, if you like the North East, like Newcastle, Sunderland, used to produce quite a lot of English talent. Yeah. Even you can include Middlesbrough in there, who do have a great youth academy. And Liverpool, they used to produce quite a lot of English talent. They're not producing what they used to produce.
And West Ham as well.
Yeah. West Ham,
West Ham.
Gone are the days.
A lot of these sides that had great,
absolutely,
academy systems, and that will year after year produce and serve up great talent that's just starting. For me,
Manchester United, who's the last great English player they've produced? We're struggling, aren't we? Yeah, we're struggling, aren't we? I mean, even Manchester United, we've all
Hargreaves.
It's potential with Will Keane, but again, it's one man doesn't.
A counter argument to this, though, could you argue that if you looked at the secondary divisions across the whole world, I'm talking France, Spain, Germany, the Football League must be by far the richest with the Championship. So could you argue that English players in the Premier League who don't get a chance to play in the Premier League go, fine, well, I'll go play in the Championship because I can still earn pretty decent money there.
Making more money and still dropping to probably a better level than the second division in most of the European countries.
I mean, you look at some of the League One teams in France. This sounds bad, but I think Bradford City give some of them a run for the money.
Well, I mean, look at Tomlinson, Will Hughes, for example, in the Championship.
What talent!
Cracking players. Will Hughes, that goal that he scored against some fantastic stuff. So you could argue that there's still that ground there. The problem is when the big clubs come and swoop at Will Hughes or whoever,
I think
stick him in the reserves.
Sinclair is a prime example.
Rodwell.
Of that.
Jack Rodwell, for me, that's tragic.
And again, it's City. And let's face it, he's gone to make up the amount of English players in a Champions League squad, not gone to play football. He's gone for the money. And so City can make up the necessary amount of English players in the squad. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like the token Englishman in that team.
That's it.
Especially when Joe Hart isn't playing.
Get you through the registration.
Exactly. I think at the moment, the only positive light from producing this next batch from a Premier League side is Southampton. Because again, you look at the under-21s, you've got James Ward-Prowse, Luke Shaw, Callum Chambers, there's Lloyd Eisgrove, who is a young Welshman, but another good talent, Nathaniel Klein, who of course they brought in from Crystal Palace, but another good talent doing well at Southampton. Where do you go with it, though? Is in how do England produce this depth of quality? For me, I think we are going to be getting to the stage that, to be fair, I don't think there's many other leagues in the world that have done this, but where you've got to have, maybe 5.
Absolutely,
I'd be happy to go with something along the lines of, what is it? A squad is 18.
Yeah, and
if you make 7 of those 18 Englishmen,
absolutely, you would force them to give players the opportunity. Chelsea's and all that, they would have to have.
And I'm not saying that they've got to start 7 in,
No. Maybe start at least 4 or so.
If you started 3, but you can have, at least 7 in the squad, that's at least 4 Englishmen that chances are will come off the bench and develop as footballers. And that, I think, needs to happen in the Premier League especially.
Absolutely.
The Football League will produce its it's younger talent anyway.
The Premier League.
You don't see the Football League really, especially when you get on Leagues 1 and 2. They don't sign players from anywhere else. They bring a lot from non-league football as well. I mean, look at Bradford City, for example, only today. The guy from Scarborough Athletic, who's 9 goals in 5 games for them, but he's being brought into a league side to try and prove himself, basically. So I think for me, the way that England need to go, if they are to increase that pool of talent that they can choose from for a start, and to actually increase the quality of players, is to say, you've got a squad of 18, we want 7 of them or something at least to be English.
I think the Football League is the way forward. The top scorer in the Championship is Danny Ings. He's English.
Great talent. Scored as well in his debut. Top 2 goals.
Exactly, fantastic player. Top assist maker in the Championship is Aaron Cresswell, who is another fantastic talent. The only problem is again, you've got Ashley Cole, Leighton Baines, Luke Shaw, and then you'd probably have someone like that. And then you've got next to the assist maker you've got Huddersfield's Adam Hamill, who's had a couple of chances in the Premier League. I mean, these players should be given a chance, but it's an English. The amount of money they have to pay for an English player is ridiculous.
Well, there's 2 points to that, and I agree with you. And one of them is, for an example for me, is someone like Daniel Sturridge. Now, Man City couldn't get a game. Always a great time, but couldn't get a game. Chelsea, in and out. Liverpool is being played consistently, and look how well he's doing.
It shows what regular football can do for a player.
Absolutely, and that I think that's incredibly important. I had a second point, I can't remember what it was.
I'm going to throw this out there while you think. Sorry. Would we know of Andros Townsend if it wasn't for Harry Redknapp at QPR?
Exactly.
Or would he have just ended up on the scrap heap with the rest of the English Tottenham players?
Absolutely.
The likes of Jake Livermore and Tom Carroll, for example. Of course, Livermore, he's been loaned to Hull, which I think, in honesty, was a good move. Because,
to try and
but again, this is the problem, though. It's a good move from his point of view now, simply because of the amount of foreign midfielders that have come into Tottenham. So,
Tottenham, I mean, you looked at how many English players went out of the club and how many foreign players came in, and it's quite startling. One thing, getting back to the England Jerry game, were you disappointed that, say, a player like Barkley only got 30 minutes, I think, combined in two games? Is that because I thought that was a bit? I can't remember. I think it may have been Lee Dixon who made that point, and I when I thought about it, I thought, that was a little bit shabby.
Yeah,
really.
he possibly should have had more game time. I don't think in the long run it's going to be,
too damaging.
It's going to be too damaging. I still think with this, this World Cup next year, that this is going to be the best chance we've got of going as a nation with no expectations, no weight of pressure from the media. Everybody knows that we're not that good with what we've got at the moment. I think this is a great chance, frankly, to take players like Ross Barkley.
Well, we're not seeded, are we, Tim, for the World Cup in the World Cup group? So we could really
end up with a horrendous. I saw something on one of the sports channels last night, and I'm trying to think what the worst case scenario was. We could end up with the likes of Spain, Japan, and the USA in one group. We could end up with some very difficult groups. But I think this is going to be a time where we need to take the youngsters to a tournament because there's no expectation on us. Nobody's expecting us to get any further in the quarter-final. So what we may as well do is plan for the future with this one. Take the youngsters and use the younger players and use this tournament as a chance to give players like Ross Barkley, Tom Ince.
Tim, would you do that? Would you take a Will Hughes or a Tom Ince?
Yeah.
Would you take those?
I'd take those players.
Hodgson won't, though, will he? Hodgson has already said that the squad's basically as it will be.
Yeah, well, you've got... He's hinted that he's not bothered if he loses in March. And why are we so bothered about winning friendly matches? The friendly matches are there, not so players can win caps and have 150 caps, but to experiment with all these players. Give Adam Lallana a chance. Give Jay Rodriguez a chance. See what Ricky Lambert can do. Look what Andros Townsend can do. See what these players can do at an international level. You see how many times, like you've seen other teams come to Wembley, like Spain, Netherlands, and Germany. They haven't played a full-strength 11. They've been playing around with it and messing around. And that's what England need to do. And personally, if we lose in March, that's a best thing for us because that'll show there'll be no more expectations.
I mean, what you've got to look at with Germany is the way that they've done it. Is this, the vast majority of their group of players have been together since, like, under-17s, under-19s level. And they're coming through and they're going to these tournaments together. And, that's really what England, I think, have got to do with this World Cup, is use this as a chance of getting a squad together not with this World Cup in mind, but with the next one in mind, and giving them, for a start, World Cup experience, because, you can't gain that without going to a tournament. I mean, I bet if you asked Theo Walcott, the best thing that probably happened to him on an international stage was going to a World Cup at the age of 16.
Absolutely.
That,
getting used to it.
Was absurd. But it's getting used to being at a World Cup.